morning, good afternoon, good evening, Jar of Marble dwellers and Jar of Marble curious. My name is Linda and this is Jar of Marbles. Where are you, Bob?
I am here. Hello.
Hello, Bob. I'm so glad that you're able to join us this week. This week, I want to talk a little bit about the history of swearing. The 18th and 19th centuries' grip of verbal fragility and the extreme avoidance of taboo bequeathed great power on those words that mentioned forbidden topics directly, freeing telling of what middle-class society was trying so desperately to obscure.
Ho, 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 ho. This sounds particularly juicy.
Well, under the setting, Bob, of repression, obscene words finally came fully into their own.
Words coming into their own. Oh, I love this.
They began to be used in non-literal ways and so became not just words that appalled and offended, but words with which people could swear.
You know, I was thinking about my level of sarcasm and it's got to the point where I don't even know if I'm kidding or not.
Good on you, Bob. Now, the classic swear word of the 18th century was bloody.
You say bloody?
I do, which is still in frequent use today and is so common down under that is known as the great Australian adjective. Me, it's always been my go-to. I remember when I was about 12, I used the word bloody quite frequently.
Well, that's a bit naughty.
Oh, no, not really. Just with my friends, bloody was and still is a good word. I'm all for a good bloody in spots.
Bloody right.
See, Bob, just rolls off the tongue. Now, bloody was not quite an obscenity and not quite an oath, let me explain, but it was definitely a bad word that shocked and offended the ears of polite society.
Now that I think of it, you do say bloody a lot.
I do, Bob. Guilty as charged. I have other favourites too. It is often supposed to be a corruption of the old oaths by Our Lady or God's blood, but this is another urban legend that turns out to be incorrect. It referred to the habits of aristocratic rabble-rousers at the end of the 17th century who styled themselves as bloods. Bloody drunk then would mean as drunk as a blood.
Well, there you go.
That's right. The career of the word bloody is interesting because you can clearly see either it's becoming a worse and worse word or the rise of good manners in action, or perhaps both.
How come?
Well, in the late 17th century, dramatists had no problem including the word in plays seen by polite audiences.
And pretentious?
Money's on it, Bob. These audiences and printers had no problem spelling it out in their editions of those plays.
She took bloody ill of him.
It's just one example. That's right, Bob. Occurring in the 1693 Maid's Last Prayer.
I always say morning instead of good morning because if it was a good morning, I'd still be in my bed not talking to people.
I hear you, Bob. Moving on. Henry Fielding, author of Tom Jones, uses it in one of his plays in 1743. This is a bloody positive old fellow. And Maria Edgeworth has her hero say of another man, Sir Philip writes a bloody bad hand in 1801's Belinda.
So getting all out of hand?
Well, the development of anything takes time and at first glance could be seen as outrageous, but that's the time of which we can only imagine.
Oh, okay then.
If Miss Edgeworth, who wrote novels about young women finding love and good marriages for a largely female readership, as well as morally improving children's literature, in fact 6 volumes of moral tales for young people, had her young hero say, bloody. It can't have been that bad a word if Miss Edgeworth gets her bloody in wherever she can. Love her spirit, especially for the times.
So it's no big deal then?
Well, wait, there's more, Bob. At around this time, the word starts to get a bit more offensive. It begins to be printed as a B, followed by a long dash, and then Y at the end, or just the letter B with a long dash, and it falls out of polite use, where it continues through the Victoria era.
The Victorian era?
Yeah, between 1837 and 1901.
No, that means nothing to me.
That's right, Bob. When George Bernard Shaw wanted to create a scandal, but not too big a scandal, in his 1914 Pygmalion, he had Eliza Doolittle exclaim in her newly posh, perfect accent, "Walk? Not bloody likely. I'm going in a taxi." The first night's audience greeted the word with a few seconds of stunned disbelief silence and then hysterical laugh and laughter for at least a minute and a quarter. And there were some protests from various decency leagues, but on the whole, a scandal never materialised. Bloody became the catchword of the season, and Pygmalion became a popular oath itself, as in not Pygmalion likely.
Not that funny.
Well, look, think of it, Bob. A word that is not heard in polite society, it would have been extra funny. Even now, no change. Anything that's frowned upon and turned into a bloody giggle is extra enjoyable.
Yeah, it is.
It is. In ancient Rome, swearing wasn't just colourful language. It was believed that curses had real power. People could carve or inscribe curses on lead tablets and toss them into sacred wells, hoping to bring calamity upon their enemies. So next time you stub your toe, remember it could be the curse of an ancient Roman.
Ho, 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 love it.
And during the Middle Ages, swearing on the Bible in court wasn't just a formality. It was taken very seriously. If you were caught lying after swearing on the Bible, you could face severe punishment. However, clever folks found a loophole by swearing on less holy objects, say like a chicken or a goose.
No way.
Yeah, imagine being accused of a crime and having to swear on a quacking duck.
You know what annoys me?
What, Bob?
When you're lying down having a wee snooze and someone comes along and asks if you're sleeping, to which I'd say, no, I'm training to die.
Now, with swearing, there were Shakespearean slurs. William Shakespeare, the master of language, didn't shy away from a bit of colourful dialogue. In his plays, he created some of the most inventive insults known to man, from "thou art as fat as butter" to "I do desire we may be better strangers."
Oh, I do like "thou art as fat as butter." I like that a lot. Fat as butter.
Shakespeare's insults were both witty and cutting. You could say he was the original king of roasts. Shakespeare's works certainly contain a variety of colourful language, including some terms that might be considered swearing, even by today's standards. While Shakespeare's plays often featured insults and curses, the language he used can seem quite mild compared to modern profanity. However, some of his characters do use what were considered strong words in his time. For instance, there was zounds and gadzooks, were minced oaths derived from God's wounds and God's hooks, respectively, which were considered very blasphemous at the time. Marry was also used as an expletive, as an marry.
Hey, by the sounds of things, you great gazook, you're as fat as butter.
Yeah, good on you, Bob. Victorian vulgarity. In Victorian England, people were quite creative when it came to understatements for swearing. Instead of saying the actual words, they'd use bizarre substitutes like drat, blast, or by Jove.
I've heard of those.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, dread it, blast.
Got a bit of a ring to it, Bob, don't you reckon?
Yeah, by Jove, yeah. No, I don't think so. It doesn't do it for me.
Okay, Bob, well, these expressions might seem quaint today, but back then they were really considered scandalous. It's like they were playing a game of linguistic charades. Victorian society often prided itself on its strict obedience to etiquette and decorum, but beneath the surface there was a rich tapestry of colourful language and slang that might raise an eyebrow or two in polite company.
I must keep polite company because I feel like that now. A bit of colourful language behind closed doors is so much fun. Hilarious, actually.
True, Bob, but while some terms may seem quaint or even charming today, others might still pack a punch. And here are a few examples. Codswallop, meaning nonsense or rubbish. It was just a fun word to say, and I think it still is. It's got a bit of a nice ring to it.
Codswallop sounds like a fish and oddly familiar to me.
Because it is still used. Balderdash, similar to codswallop.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
This term also means nonsense or rubbish. Carking. This means worrying or distressing. Victorian literature is full of characters who are carking about something or other.
When someone's carked, it usually means they've dropped dead.
Yeah, you're right, Bob. Have used that term, but more say if a car stops running. They can also say it's carked it. Bamboozle, to deceive or cheat someone. This word has a playful quality to it, but being bamboozled was no joke.
Yeah, still heard of that one too.
And then there's gazooks, an exclamation of surprise or annoyance. It's a minced oath, a way to express strong feelings without taking the Lord's name in vain. And then there's cattywampus, quite like that one, meaning askew or awry. It's a delightful word that perfectly captures a sense of disorder. Then there's flummoxed, confused or bewildered. This word has a certain charm to it, even when describing a state of perplexity. Snollygoster. Oh, I do like this. It's a shrewd or unprincipled person, especially a politician, a snollygoster. This term carries a bit of bite, but was often used just to criticise those in power.
Oh, I like that one, a snollygoster.
And then there's poppycock, similar to codswallop and balderdash. It simply means nonsense or foolishness, and that has a slightly more refined air to it. Then there's hogwash, meaning nonsense or rubbish. This term has a certain earthiness to it that makes it particularly satisfying to say.
Some of those words are still used.
Correct, Bob? Very true. And what about a little pirate profanity?
Ahoy, matey!
Pirates were known for their colourful language, but did you know they had their own unique swear words? From shiver me timbers to avast ye scurvy dogs, pirate curses were as colourful as their parrot's feathers.
Some people have moments where they just say, oh, for fuck's sake, and what the fuck, and fuck this shit.
So, 20th century expletives. Thanks for that, Bob.
It's all right.
As time marched on, swearing evolved with the times in the 20th century. New words and phrases entered the lexicon, reflecting the changing attitudes of society, from the colourful language of the Jazz Age to the defiant slang of the counterculture crusade. Swearing kept pace with the times. It's like a linguistic time capsule of human expression.
I was thinking that.
Modern society today, swearing's everywhere, from movies and music to everyday conversation. But did you know that swearing actually has some surprising benefits?
Oh, this will be good. Surprise me.
Well, studies have shown that letting out a well-placed curse word can actually help relieve pain and stress. So the next time you stub your toe, you don't have to hold back. Just say what you need to say. Swearing has always been a colourful and creative aspect of human language, and throughout history, people have found unique and humorous ways to express themselves, from ancient curses to modern-day maledictions. Swearing has grown with society, leaving behind a path of colourful language and colourful characters. The advantages of swearing are many, says Timothy J., Professor Emeritus of Psychology at the Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts, who has studied swearing for more than 40 years.
So this guy's been studying swearing for 40 years?
I know, it's interesting, isn't it? But the benefits of swearing have just emerged in the last 2 decades as a result of a lot of research on brain and emotion, along with much better technology to study brain anatomy. Cursing may be a sign of intelligence.
Yeah, I've heard this.
Yeah, so have I. Well-educated people with plenty of words at their disposal, a 2015 study found, were better at coming up with curse words than those who were less verbally fluent. Swearing may be a sign of honesty.
Oh, here we go.
I know. So when you're honestly expressing your emotions with powerful words, then you're going to come across as more honest, said Jay. So I believe when swearing isn't something you do all the time, as in every second word, and there are times when life has just been a bit much and a few F-bombs are dropped, there is a certain honesty, not mincing your words, being very direct. Yes, I do agree with that. It does feel very sincere.
And we like that.
Yes, we bloody do. The study authors cautioned that the findings should not be interpreted to mean that the more a person uses profanity, the less likely he or she would engage in more serious, unethical or immoral behaviours.
Yeah, we get it.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. And discharging obscenities doesn't help your endurance. If you kick your toe into something hard, spread your little toe, say, around a stool leg.
Ouch.
You may feel less pain if you say
shit
instead of shoot.
Yeah, shoot's kind of a bit blah. What about unsticking your thighs from plastic chair season?
Oh, that hurts. Richard Stevens is a senior lecturer at Keele University in Staffordshire, England, where he leads the psychobiology research laboratory. Man, that was a mouthful. Stevens said it works like this. Cussing produces a stress response that initiates the body's ancient defensive reflex. A flush of adrenaline increases the heart rate and breathing, prepping the muscles for fight or flight. And curse words lose their power over pain when they are used too much. And so research has just also discovered that as well, just in case we get all excited about, well, I'm just going to go and have a swearing session and just get rid of some of my stress.
I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think it's bollocks. I've been swearing happily for years and no loss of power as far as I can see. Now, I thought this was very interesting. Some of us get more out of swearing than others. Take people who are more afraid of pain. They're called catastrophizers. A catastrophizer, Stevens explained, is someone who might have a tiny wound and think, oh, this is life-threatening, I'm going to get gangrene, I'm probably going to die. The research found men who were lower catastrophizers seemed to get a benefit from swearing, whereas men who are higher catastrophizers didn't. Stevens said, whereas with women, there wasn't any difference. Well, I actually get that. I totally get that. Swearing is a sign of creativity. Swearing appears to be centred in the right side of the brain, the part people often call the creative brain.
Oh, this is very interesting.
I know. It wasn't just about colourful language back in the day. It was once believed that words were curses and were inscribed on tablets, then thrown into wells to bring about calamity to the person that they were trying to get even with or to get rid of.
Wild times.
I know. So meanwhile, back in the jungle, Tarzan disguised himself as a door and got his knob shot off.
Seriously? Yep.
Here in the 21st century, swearing has a whole life of its own, and it's mostly acceptable just about everywhere. Curse words shift a lot over time. They're in the middle of a big shift right now. So, as we know, people swear a lot on social media. It's hard to show that social media users are a representative sample of the population. For another, we don't have a real sense of how much people swore, say, 50 years ago, as they failed to keep detailed records. But if people aren't swearing more than they used to, it does seem to be the case that they are swearing differently than they used to. And you know, when something shocking, bad happens, we usually don't say, oh darn, drat, blast, oh blow. We usually drop a few F-bombs and be done with it. And why, you might ask?
Well, I didn't.
Because it gives a feeling of letting go of the angst, releasing the annoyance, the shock of it all. It is somehow satisfying. Oh yes, I've been in the company of highly intelligent people who have been messed around by a company or the like, and let's say the ridiculousness and incompetency has been at an all-time high, and they've just dropped some choice F-bombs, and in between apologising that they just had to let it out, and let it out they did. I see nothing wrong with that whatsoever. I've dropped my share of F-bombs and I have zero shame.
How come you're like that?
Well, because, Bob, I'm of the mind that there are enough people who are professionally offended. They seek out by proxy, getting offended for those that they have decided are or would be offended. There will always be those who are offended at any damn thing. Clickbait headlines, they are just trash and don't deliver what they are insinuating. Someone saw someone do a thing and people are, well, they're angry, when in reality, no one cares. Then there's the folks like myself who could not give a sausage, or the so-called experts in mainstream media that tell us what King Charles is thinking and what Prince Charles had for breakfast and why we should all hate Meghan Markle. It's all so uninteresting. The so-called experts who have never met these people and have the lowdown on it all. Boring. So not only are we not angry, most of us actually don't care. We wouldn't have known about it had it not become headline news that apparently we are all angry. No, we're not. So much so I don't even watch the news. I only know if I'm told something. It's all bollocks. I used to find it insulting that they being the media, whoever, the so-called influencers, were thinking that we're all that dumb, then realised there will always be those that believe the shite, and then there's a ton of us that couldn't give a monkeys. It's a vicious cycle that I choose to stay away from. It really really is just a laxative for me. So if I'm constipated, I go and watch the news and off I go. Bombs away. We all change, don't we? Well, most of us do. I'm always sworn a little bit here and there, and usually time and place of mind, but a wee sweary can and does happen, like what the actual fuck. I would say that most of us have our favourite swear word, those words that we let out of the cage when the time is right or not. And as Mark Twain said, there ought to be a room in every house to swear in. It's dangerous to have to repress an emotion like that, and I'm with them.
Me too.
They say swearing is due to limited vocabulary. I know thousands of words, but I still prefer fuck off to go away. One must switch up one's sweary words to keep it fresh and potent. Call someone a piece of fuck. Tell them to go and fuck themselves. I think of them as sentence enhancers. Yes, that's what they are, definitely.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, me too. Personally, I don't find swearing offensive, but I do find backstabbing, lying, cruelty, domestic violence, cheating, I find all of that fairly offensive, but not swearing. Who gives a fucking fuck? And on that note, I think it's time to fuck off. Oh, no!
Yep, that time again.
Yes, it is, Bob.
Well, it has been awesome.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. Thank you for joining us. Hope you were adequately affronted, with laughs, of course. Say good day to the family for me, give the stink bug a flick, and we'll see you next time, okay? Okay then, bye.
Bye.